Bloom News Brief. More info at fullandbloom.com. Bassist Phil Soussan has refuted Jake E. Lee's assertion that he was partially responsible for getting the guitarist fired from Ozzy Osbourne's band, saying Lee's trying to rewrite history. During a 2018 interview with The Metal Voice, Jake E. Lee said that one of the reasons he was fired from the band was because he and Phil Soussan did not have a good relationship. Lee said, "Randy Castillo told me that Phil wanted to be the main songwriter because the song Shot in the Dark that he wrote was the big hit on The Ultimate Sin. And Phil Soussan was whispering in Ozzy's ear, 'We don't need Jake. We'll just write a bunch of hits now.' As far as Phil is concerned, I know he was partially instrumental in getting me fired. He lasted in the band after I was out, maybe 3 months before he got fired. I saved his ass prior twice on tour because of his stage antics. And Ozzy wanted to fire him, and I talked Ozzy out of it. So the fact that Phil helped me get fired in the end, and then only lasted a couple of months, karma." During a brand new interview with The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, the former Ozzy bassist said, "Look, if Jake or anybody thinks I had any influence over Sharon Osbourne, they're really giving me way too much power. I can't speak for Jake. I never thought there was an issue or anything else. Andrew Freeman said to me a few years ago, 'Hey, would you ever want to put a band together with Jake? Because I talked to somebody.' I said, 'Hell yeah, that would be great.' It never happened, and then I started hearing all this stuff. And I'm thinking, why would somebody say that? The thing with Jake, he just one day stopped showing up. I mean, he must have had some issues or something that was going on. We went to rehearse. We were rehearsing every day. Weeks turned into months, and he would just never show up. One day Sharon called us up and said, 'If he's not there tomorrow, we're going to let him go.' So for him to turn around and say that, he's trying to rewrite history or something. Honestly, we were devastated once that happened. We said to Sharon, 'How the hell are we going to find somebody else?' Because Jake was an incredible guitar player. He was a huge part of the band. He was a huge personality. And she said, 'Oh, don't worry, you'll find somebody.' And for the next 4 or 5 months, that's what we did. We sat in a rehearsal room trying to find a guitar player. During a 2018 interview with Eon Music, Lee talked about the day he was fired from Ozzy's band. Sharon Osbourne called me and said she wanted to have dinner with me. So we went out, and she was buying, so it was a great dinner. And we went back to the hotel, and we talked for a while. And I suppose there were clues in there, because she was talking about how someday, Jake, when you have your own band, and I think her major piece of advice was to be on time, because I'm notoriously late for everything. So she said, when you're a leader of a band, you kind of need to set an example. You need to be on time. And that was the only clue I had, really. I came back home, and my roommate at the time was also my guitar tech. And he came back from the Rainbow, and he had seen Phil and Randy Castillo. He said they came up to him and said, 'So what are you going to do now that Jake's out of the band?' So he ran back home and told me and said, 'Dude, did you just get fired?' And I went, 'No.' And he went, 'I think you did.' And I went, 'No, I just saw Sharon. I just had dinner with her, and we talked and talked. I think she would have told me if I was fired.' And he said, 'Well, that's not what Randy and Phil said.' So I picked the phone up, and I called Sharon back and said, 'I just heard the weirdest rumor.' And she broke down and said, 'Yes, it's true.' And I said, 'What? Do you mean I'm fired?' And she goes, 'Yes, that's why I took you to dinner. But you never said anything.' And she said, 'I know, I felt too bad, and I just couldn't do it,' which people might find hard to believe because Sharon Osbourne, I mean, come on, she's pretty ruthless. But we got along really well when I was in the band. I considered us friends back then. And just the fact that she was supposed to fire me and couldn't, it's hilarious in retrospect. That night it wasn't so hilarious. More news at fullandbloom.com.